Broadcasting live in downtown Oakland.
I'm David Hollander, and you're listening to Protect Your Assets. Over the last 20 years, I've met many people dissatisfied with the lack of value and personal attention their financial advisor provides them. At Liberty Group, we personalize every aspect of our clients' retirement and financial plan with estate law, wealth management, and tax planning all under one roof. Call today to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Nine rounds down on this season of the Real Racers Virtual Club. 5 unique winners this season, but Anders Krohn and Nikita Lastichkin continue to pull away at the top of the points championship. After Anders Krohn swept the night in Laguna Seca, becoming the first driver to win both races in a single event this season, can he do it again? We transfer over from one city in California to another here at the Sonoma Raceway for the 10th round of action in this 11-round campaign of the Real Racers Virtual Club. We're happy that all of you are joining us here on RaceSpotTV for all of tonight's coverage. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining me alongside in the booth is Lorenzo Bonder with Tyler Maxson down in the virtual production trailer tonight. And Lorenzo, as we gear up for tonight's action here at this beautiful Sonoma Raceway, the points championship is starting to turn a tide. Anders Krohn becoming now the only driver this season to have swept a single event, winning both races, sits only 3 points behind Nikita Lastichkin with the drop weeks. So Nikita has a lot of work to do, and Anders Krohn needs to keep getting the wins that he has gotten in the last 2 rounds.
He needs the consistency to make it up on top and pass Lastichkin. But don't count Matthew Escajeda out. I think his last week, well, not last week, but the second to last week, because when we ran last time by, it was a really good week for him. And that kind of propelled him into a, right outside of the points, but within a relatively long dream of making it to the top. He needs to be basically winning every single race from now on.
And talking about Matthew Escajeda, of course, the former champion of Real Racers Virtual Club, he's got a bit of work to do from 196, trying to catch up to Anders Krohn's 220 and Nikita Lastichkin's 223. But there still is drop weeks being factored into these points, so who knows what will happen when those drop weeks are factored in for not only this round here at Sonoma, but our finale round at Watkins Glen in 1 week's time. Here's where we have been and where we are going with Watkins Glen, Lime Rock, Gateway, Red Bull Ring, Silverstone Legacy, Interlagos, Phoenix, and Road America, along with the Laguna Seca now in the rearview mirror. We have the classic boot layout at Watkins Glen coming up, but this track here, Sonoma Raceway, running the Cup layout, which is the newer Cup layout. Of course, the NASCAR Cup Series ran this layout over the last couple of years. Now they're back to the layout that they have been known for, that goes through the downhill into the hard right-hander, but this track on this layout is most familiar to me, Lorenzo, just sort of like the IndyCar layout without the chicane and without that tighter hairpin of that final corner. This is a very difficult racetrack with the uphill, with the downhill, with that carousel section that just always seems to get those cars upset when they come over the uphill crest.
And also, there is no major rumble strips around the track. So if you hit a patch of sand or even a slight patch of grass, because nearly right in the middle of the desert, so you get basically grass at spring and maybe even at winter. But when you race in a track like this, you need precision, and with the elevation that you get and the roller coaster effect that you're going to get every single lap, it's really hard for you to nail the perfect lap every single time.
With qualifying starting up, Matthew Escajeda goes right to the top of the board, and I think surprising, a messed up lap from Anders Krohn puts him now P7 after Rick Sheldon, Kurt Panzergrau adding to the leaderboard as well. That is a long gap down, a 131.327 last time by for Anders Krohn, but he's working his way through the last couple of corners. Let's see what Anders Krohn can do as he goes through the final corner here at the Sonoma Raceway. Let's see what it is going to be for Anders Krohn, if it'll be an improvement. It looks like he's going to aim for about a 125 second here. If he goes south of it, he'll be on pole, and it is going to be enough, a 125.017, and by about 3/10, Anders Krohn back to the top of the leaderboard. This man right here, Nikita Lasichkin, has to make something happen. He's predicted right now to be a little bit slower than Anders Krohn. Let's see how he can do through the middle sector.
Yeah, this part is very important because you go into a U section hairpin, it kind of opens up, then you're going to have to go tie it into the corner and then go basically paddle out and make sure the car doesn't track on its rear. Then basically it's a hit-miss or hit-miss of sorts, and just follow the cruise off the track, and the lap's not going to be fast, looks like, Joshua. That might put him right outside of the top 3 as we move forward.
Let's see where he is going to land. Obviously shooting rather far up, and it looks like he goes wide at that final corner. Lorenzo, do you think that was on purpose, maybe trying to get a good run off, or do you think he kind of just missed that braking zone?
I do think that was a little bit on purpose. You know, he knows the lap kind of like went in shambles, so first lap might not be the fastest because the car is still lightest, especially around these high elevation corners, especially turn number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So you do expect the first lap to be a little bit of a bad one, then you gotta make it up on the second every single lap.
That's what he's trying to do here, and last time by, not exactly the lap that he was looking for, 126.537. He's on pace to be at about that point here, and we'll see how that is going to run down in that lap time, and still in about the mid or the low 126 is going to need a really good middle sector and a really good third sector if Nikita Lasichkin is going to sit on pole. But right now it's Anders Krohn at the top of the board, Max Butler in second, Matthew Escajeda, brother Joe Butler in fourth, and Dave Anderson rounding out the top 5. Can Nikita Lasichkin get into the top 5? This is still not the lap that Lasichkin was looking for, and not the lap that is going to put him on pole. And we'll see what he can do through the final hairpin, if he can make up the better half of 1 full second. He's down, was touching the 125s. He's going to touch the 125s again, get into about the mid 125s now, but it's still not going to be enough for pole. It'll be close, but it's not going to put him on the front row, and it looks like it's going to put him in about the mid pack, P4. It'll be for the number 5 machine, as he'll tow it back to the pit lane, and qualifying winding its way down, Lorenzo. A lot of interesting things coming out of that qualifying session, but back on pole is Anders Krohn, going for 3 race wins in a row. Laguna Seca race 1 and 2, now leading up to Sonoma 1.
And the worst thing for Nikita Lasichkin is not being within the top 3, because it is not an easy track for you to make overtakes, because you don't have that long stretch of a straight. So it's going to be an interesting one how we break it down.
And as we continue on with tonight's coverage leading into the race, we would like to thank all the sponsors that help to put on each round of the Real Racers Virtual Club, starting with Liberty Group. At Liberty Group LLC, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always wanted. Our team of professionals can help you create a well-thought-out strategy using a variety of investments and insurance products and services to help you address your financial needs and concerns. We also like to thank the Stephen Wilson Racing Academy. The Stephen Wilson Racing Academy exists to assist clients on their motorsport journey. SWRA utilizes 20 plus years in the sport with advanced coaching techniques, track and car knowledge, and widespread international industry connections to help clients progress to any level imaginable. Whether the client is new to driving on track or an experienced amateur racer, we help our clients develop driving skills that enable them to climb through the Ferrari Challenge ranks, win races in Ferrari Challenge, advance to competing in Pro-Am racing, and one day possibly iconic races such as the Daytona 24-hour or the Le Mans 24-hour. We also would like to thank Coforce for their support of the Real Racers Virtual Club.
Coforce is a digital media marketing agency specializing in the world of motorsports. Working in a variety of racing series in North America, Coforce offers a full range of services, from video production and targeted branding campaigns to event planning and special projects. For more information, visit www.coforce.com or find them at a race event near you.
Ready to continue with tonight's action here from the virtual Sonoma Raceway. We welcome you back to live coverage on RaceSpotTV of the Real Racers Virtual Club 10th round of this successful third season of Real Racers Virtual Club action. Matthew Escajeda and Kurt Panzergrau, the two champions of season 2 and 1 respectively, and we are staring at an amazing championship battle over these last two events, and we are looking at an amazing new champion and going 3 seasons, 3 unique champions. Let's take a look at the starting grid as we get ready to go racing tonight. It's Anders Krohn who will start on the pole for race number 1, with Max Butler starting to his outside on row 2. Matthew Escajeda will start third, with Nikita Lastichkin starting in P number 4. You have Rick Sheldon and Joe Butler going to share that third row. Back from there, 7th, 8th, and 9th go to Dave Anderson, Wade Michael, and Kurt Panzergrau. 9 drivers ready to line up and ready to go racing here from the virtual Sonoma Raceway. And as they line up, of course, I have a pace lap in front of us behind the official iRacing pace car. But Lorenzo, coming into tonight, Anders Krohn last week showed that he is looking for a championship as he went winning both races at Laguna Seca from round 9. Now has 5 total wins on the season, the most of anybody now, beating out Nikita Lastichkin, who has 4, as well as Josh Green with his 1 win, Andre Castro with 1, and Josh Green with 2, Max Butler with 1, and Andre Castro with 1 as well. So do you think we're going to see another dominating performance from Anders Krohn, because he also not only became the first driver to win back-to-back, he became the first driver after the full field invert that we see in race number 2 be the first driver to go from the back to the front and capture the win?
I do believe so. I do believe that might be Anders Krohn race to lose right here, because it's been so much better than everybody else on practice that I do think it might need something special from the field to get close to him and maybe battle it out until the final lap. The problem is, can they do it? Because this is not an easy track by any chance. We mentioned this before. The tires will be eventually cold going into the first sector, and the first sector, because it is going to be light, because you're going uphill, you might be prone for mistakes, and the brakes could be locking. So it's going to be a very hectic first lap, and then we can see how the field will shape up after that first lap, and if we're going to get close racing.
And I should mention, we do give 1 extra bonus point for the pole sitter and 1 extra bonus point for the fastest lap during the race. So Anders Krohn already picking up 1 point to go over Nikita Lasichkin. As they currently stand, if we look at live points, Anders Krohn would take the lead of the points championship. It is going to come down to these last 4 races and these last 2 rounds of action at Laguna Seca and Watkins Glen. So you better lock yourself into the virtual seat. You do not want to go anywhere. You want to watch this championship battle unfold because it is going to come down to the wire. These points battles are always interesting to watch, especially when it is only 2 points now separating the top 2 with 4 drops of the green flag remaining this season. The field is ready to go racing from wine country, the virtual Sonoma Raceway. We are ready to drop the hammer. The green flag will go out. Anders Krohn ready to lead him up the hill to turns 1 and 2. Green flag is in the air and Anders Krohn hits the loud pedal already with a great gap over the side-by-side battle now between Max Butler and Rick Sheldon as they dive their way up and into turn number 1. Already contact early. Max Butler going at the top of Rick Sheldon, and it looks like also involved his brother Joe Butler. The 2 Butlers involved, and it looks like Nikita Lasichkin is also turned off to the side. Championship implications for the gate machine.
Yeah, it looked like Butler and Escajeda made contact onto turn number 3, and unfortunately, Lasichkin was trying to sneak in on the inside, had a little bit of room maybe to try to maneuver that. We're going to look on the replay. Josh, there you go into the contact, and that spin is what caused the death of Escajeda, unfortunately. Not Escajeda, but Lasichkin, unfortunately. But lap 1 drama having major implications for the championship.
And Lasichkin just nowhere to go, gets tapped from behind and into the tire barrier. Here he goes. Now, you'll see that on our tower up at the top, it is yellow. We are under a full course caution. That is a rule in this series that on the first lap, if an incident goes down, they can call a full course yellow flag. That is what we are under here. We were under it in Interlagos at the start of both of those races, and we're seeing that again here tonight from Sonoma. So the field will bunch themselves back up. We will have a restart here in a couple laps time, but we talked about it in Interlagos, Lorenzo, just the interesting nature that a full course caution at the beginning of this race brings out, because it will give Max Butler, Joe Butler, Rick Sheldon, and to an extent Nikita Lasichkin, even though he towed it back into the pit lane, an opportunity to get their damage repaired and get back onto the racetrack as quickly as possible. 1 fast repair available to all these drivers. Looks like Matthew Escajeda grabbing that fast repair. Nikita Lasichkin dealing with the tow before he can grab that fast repair. But now, couple of drivers can get that damage repaired and get back onto the racetrack when they wouldn't be able to if we weren't under a full course caution here. But this also gives more pressure to Anders Krohn, because he not only has to master the initial start, he now has to master this restart.
Yeah, but the good thing is going to be a single file restart as far as I can remember. So because it is a single file restart, you don't have that pressure of having a driver side by side to you when marking every time you're gonna go on the pedal and apply the major pressure, so you can make a fluster and maybe spin around and lose your position. So I think that's the good bit about Anders Krohn. The problem for like guys that towed back to the pit lane like Lasichkin is, can the car make it back in pits in due time and not lose a lap in the process? See another car rejoining? Might be Lasichkin, though.
We'll see if we grab a 1-to-go signal from the Barney the Flagman up in the virtual post there, and we'll see if how quickly we're going to be going back to green flag action. Of course, only 11 laps that are on the docket for tonight, and this is going to sort of give everybody a little bit more anxiety as they now watch and wait for this race to go back under green. But as far as drivers hitting the pit lane, of course, all the usual suspects of drivers who were caught up in that incident: Max Butler, Joe Butler, Rick Sheldon. Nikita Lastishkin still dealing with that toe to get himself back into the pit lane. Matthew Escajeda also chose the opportunity to work his way into the pit lane, and he will stay on the lead lap, but is now going to be all the way at the bottom in P8. And as the lights go out on the official iRacing pace car, we will go back to racing this time by, but Nikita Lastishkin now is 2 laps down, still sitting in 9th. He's going to need to take this as his drop week, which, unless the week that is going to go back into the rotation is an amazing finish for him that just happened to be dropped, this championship is going to go the way of Anders Krohn for not the first time this season, but especially after the, I'll say it, lackluster middle portion of the season for Anders Krohn, where he only picked up a win here and there. His dominance is going to put him back to the top.
Well, we have to take also into the fact that Krohn missed some of the rounds in the middle portion of the season, right? So it kind of got counted towards drop weeks. I think we have to basically say his recovery from, you know, those drop weeks, those absences that he had in the middle part of the season have been quite phenomenal, to say the very least. You know, it did propel him into a championship contending spot. Now, for Lastishkin, there is only one way the second race must go. He's gonna get pole. He must win.
This is really going to be an interesting restart, I think, because now Anders Krohn is back to the front. And you can see, second place, Dave Anderson now sitting there in the number 62. How about Wade Michael in third? There's a lot of fast drivers that are now finding themselves at the front. We'll see what they can do, but everybody is going to be following the 47 of Anders Krohn as they dive into turn number 1 yet again for the second restart of the event. Now we'll go on to lap number 4. We'll have 8 laps to go in this 11-lap opening race of the round. Nikita Lastishkin has found himself now back on track at the tail end of this group, and he will be scored as 1 lap down. He was able to grab one of those laps back. So we are ready to go back to racing. iRacing pace car is into the pit lane, and Anders Krohn is back in control of the field, and we'll see when he is going to choose to hit that loud pedal and go racing. He's going to choose at the immediate exit of turn 11 as they go through turn 12. Green flag is shown again, and Wade Michael already trying to find a way to get by Dave Anderson as they go up the hill to turn number 1. And STP number 62 is going to hold on to second, going a bit wide on the entry to 1 goes Wade Michael. How about Max Butler after a fast repair? Right back into the action, P4.
Which is a good thing to see, one of the Butler brothers being back on the track this after the drama they actually had on the turn number 3 on lap 1. But good to see Dave Anderson having a really good moment so far. Best position in this in all races, in my opinion, so far, despite the restart. But he's probably going to lose the position now to Wade Michael as he dives down on the inside of the carousel.
Side by side as they work their way down the normal drag strip that is there, and they go off to the side for this corner here. To the outside now of Dave Anderson goes Wade Michael. He grabs that spot. Max Butler trying to squeeze in there, can't do it. He's gonna have to stay settled for that 4th spot, and it looks like an issue for Matthew Escajeda and Rick Sheldon coming together off the exit of turn 7. They both now will have to go back into the pit lane, and Nikita Lastishkin still trying to fight back from P9, but Dave Anderson now will officially lose the spot to Max Butler. Butler moves up into P3 with Wade Michael in 2nd place, trying to now pull away from these groups. As you can see, Lastishkin able to try and work his way around. He is still 1 lap down, but as he works around Panzergrau, just a little bit closer to grabbing that lap back as Anders Krohn sets another fastest lap of the race at the front.
I wonder if Lastishkin is on the track and for the fastest lap contention, because right now is for Anders Krohn. He has the fastest lap around the track, and I think the saving grace for Lastishkin in this race, because he knows he's not going to be first place in the second race, he's going to be basically third place whenever we go into race 2, bar any mishaps from the grid that might affect into the positioning. The fastest lap might be his saving grace to get that extra point and maybe make this a little bit less worse than it is right now. Oh, no.
Oh, that's the replay on the bottom of your screen, and you can see it just getting together. It looks like Escajeda might have gotten a little bit too hot on those brakes, lost the car, and ended up making contact with Rick Sheldon. That puts both of them into the pit lane, or towing it back to the pit lane, I should say, still en route back into the pit lane. But that'll move Lasickin now to the first car 1 lap down. Now, of course, not operating under NASCAR or stock car rules, and we have no more full course cautions that will be called in this race no matter what. So Lasickin, very rare that he will grab that lap back, especially with no pit stops as well in this race, but never say never. We'll see if he climbs his way back up and starts battling for the lead, but it looks like Lasickin pulling it into the pit lane. Very interesting for the number 5 machine, maybe trying to move his way a little bit further down the order, because Lorenzo, they do have a full field invert for race number 2. Lasickin might be trying to hedge his bets, try and get as much points out of race number 2 as he possibly can, because now we might see race number 1 as a bit of a lost cause.
Yeah, for him, the race 1 has to be a lost cause. You know, you cannot go for more spots and basically put in a very unfortunate spot going to race number 2. I think you can even see him now towing back to the pit lane, or going back to the pit lane, because now Matthew Escajeda moves back to P7. That would propel Lasickin into the restart to P number 2. So it's those things, you know. Races are races. I've had my fair share on this week, I'm not gonna lie, and I kind of feel myself feel like Lasickin a little bit. So you got to do your best to keep your chin high and go to race 2 with better outcomes.
Rick Sheldon still towing back to the pit lane as he sits in 9th place. Currently taking a look at this battle for 2nd place, Wade Michael versus Max Butler. Max Butler, winner from race number 1 at Phoenix in the 7th round of this season. Sitting in that 3rd spot, sitting in the 2nd spot, Wade Michael, no wins yet this season for that number 2 machine, but he is about 5.5 seconds removed from the dominant Anders Krohn as he continues to pull away at the front of the field. And we call it Real Racers Virtual Club because that's exactly what it is. Real racers hitting the track in these races. Anders Krohn is no exception, a Norwegian racing driver, and has competed in Indy Lights before in the early 2010s. Has competed in the Star Mazda and Pro Mazda championships. He knows his way around especially cars like these, the Indy Pro 2000s in iRacing, and he is known for, of course, competing in these sim racing events as well, whether it's Real Racers Virtual Club, Monday Night Racing. You can always find him on the iRacing service. And the 2nd place battle now that sits behind Anders Krohn, Wade Michael versus Max Butler, starting to get a little bit more interesting, Lorenzo, as they find themselves a little bit closer together, and especially as Wade Michael takes a trip into the sand and give Max Butler the 2nd spot. A mistake from Wade Michael is going to push him to the bottom step of the podium.
Yeah, I really want to look on the replay if that rejoin was a dangerous rejoin, because it did look like that for a second, because Michael's car just got very wiggly on the exit out of the S's, and Butler, well, he had a little bit of room to navigate and avoid a possible crash, but looking from the camera perspective, it does look a little bit edgy, that rejoin from Wade Michael.
And now the Max Butler going to take this opportunity to pull away by about 6/10 now over Wade Michael. Here's the replay. And he just got too much on that rumble strip and got loose. Didn't look like that unsafe of a rejoin to me, Lorenzo. And there's not much you can really do when you're borderline out of control, especially with these racing slicks. When you get on sand, you might as well be out of control. It's very difficult to control those cars. And it kind of seemed like he was just along for the ride there. Not much he could have done.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I thought it was sketchy at first, but looking at it, I think that was the only way to go, and he kept it straight. Just didn't do anything wholly dramatic for Joe Butler to go through, and Joe Butler going P2 at the end of things. Now his brother fighting with Dave Anderson for top 5 spots.
And now taking a look back at Dave Anderson, who started in second off of that second restart that we had, and unfortunately didn't have the speed to contend with Butler or Michael or Crone at the front of the field. Now trying to hold back the other Butler who was caught up in that initial incident on the first turn as well. And it's Joe Butler in the one that sits behind him, and we'll see if Dave Anderson can hold on in that fourth spot. A good season so far for Dave Anderson, not in the championship fight. Neither is the Ferrari painted Joe Butler, and from P5 here, Lorenzo, I think he's hoping for a little bit of that Ferrari magic they had in Bahrain. As you can see, you're getting very, very tight on those brakes and trying to get that car slowed down to enter into this infield portion of the track.
Yeah, nearly doing a Max Verstappen instead of a Charles Leclerc into the corner per se. But yeah, that Ferrari livery from Joe Butler looking really good as he makes the overtake on Dave Anderson. Dave not making any fuss around the outside, just let the number one go. And Joe moving up one spot, and Max, his brother, about 3 seconds front, 3.5 seconds front in second place.
And Dave Anderson, just a little bit of a mistake there, overcooking the brakes, going into that corner, pushes him now down to the edge of the top 5. Kurt Panzergrau about 22 seconds removed from Dave Anderson, so not expecting Anderson to lose any more positions on this racetrack, especially this time by. It'll be 2 laps to go here in race number 1 from virtual Sonoma. Anders Crone still leads the way. Max Butler in second. About 1 second back from him is Wade Michael, and you can go 3 seconds back to find Joe Butler, another 1.5 seconds back to find Dave Anderson, some 22 seconds back to find Kurt Panzergrau. Matthew Escajeda and Nikita Lasichkin both sit 1 lap down, with Rick Sheldon sitting 4 laps down. Now back on the racetrack after a long tow to the pit lane and a fast repair used, but an amazing performance from Anders Crone. I think we really expected this coming in, especially after the domination that he had at Laguna Seca. Just absolutely perfect, not putting a foot wrong when it comes to these races now. And I think we're seeing how badly Anders Crone wants this championship, Lorenzo, because now when it matters the most, he is absolutely perfect on this track.
Yeah, he's being pitch perfect, giving no room for everybody else to try to get closer and contend for that P1 spot. Of course, Laguna Seca had a little bit of drama with Josh Green, of course, and I think even Lasichkin was contending for the top spot as well. I think that was on race 2 instead of race 1. Race 1, I think, was more loose, if I remember, for Anders Crone, but regardless, going back-to-back wins at Laguna Seca is what brought the number 47 car, or the AK-47, coming closer to the battle against Lasichkin. So that's why the Norwegian doing a really good job on the late portion of the season to try to seal off the deal and get the championship.
White flag is in the air. 1 final lap here in race number 1 from Sonoma. We still have an entire second race that is coming up. We're going to do a full field invert. And right now, Rick Sheldon is going to be on the pole for that second race. And Anders Crone going to have to battle through 8 drivers to go from 9th to 1st and grab the win in race number 2. He did it at Laguna Seca 2 weeks ago. Will he be able to do it again and win 4 races in a row and be a 7-time winner? He needs to get to 6 first, and as he works his way through sector 3, he is about to be the only driver this season to win 6 races and now extend his lead at the top of not only the points championship, but on top of the win total. You can see Joe Butler now holding on to a final step of the podium as he was able to pass Wade Michael. It'll be a double Butler podium if he's able to hold off in these last couple of corners. But coming through the final hairpin and through turn 12, it is 6 race wins for Anders Crone. He is perfect in race number 1 at Sonoma. He's still got unfinished business in race 2 to take care of. Through the final couple of corners as well, the 2 Butler brothers will come home 2 and 3. Max in second, Joe in third, Wade Michael ends up 4th. Dave Anderson's going to round out the top 5. But Lorenzo, Anders Crone, absolutely perfect here in race number 1. He's got his work cut out for him in race number 2, as that man right there, Nikita Lasichkin, will be starting outside of the front row.
Yeah, and the question that we have to make for race number 2, can this man, Nikita Lasickin, stop the threat that is the AK-47 of Andrew Scrone, because he is flying around this track. And I'll be very honest, I'll be blunt here, Josh. I don't think that he has it, but it's going to be a second race that is going to be an interesting one for us to watch and commentate on.
Anders Krohn grabs the win. Max Butler, Joe Butler in second and third. Wade Michael comes home fourth, with Dave Anderson rounding out the top 5. Kurt Panzergrau comes home in sixth. Matthew Escajeda in seventh. Nikita Lasickin eighth, with Rick Sheldon rounding out the field of 9 that took the green flag in race number 1. We've got race number 2 coming up on the horizon, but now we would like to thank all the sponsors of Real Racers Virtual Club one more time, and starting with Liberty Group. At Liberty Group LLC, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always wanted. Our team of professionals can help you create a well thought out strategy using a variety of investments and insurance products and services to help you address your financial needs and concerns. We also would like to thank the Stephen Wilson Racing Academy. The Stephen Wilson Racing Academy exists to assist clients on their motorsport journey. SWRA utilizes 20 plus years in the sport with advanced coaching techniques, track and car knowledge, and widespread international industry connections to help clients progress to any level imaginable. Whether the client is new to driving on track or an experienced amateur racer, we help our clients develop driving skills that enable them to climb through the Ferrari Challenge ranks, win races in Ferrari Challenge, advance to competing in Pro-Am racing, and one day possibly iconic races such as the Daytona 24-hour or the Le Mans 24-hour. We also like to thank Coforce for their continued support of the Real Racers Virtual Club.
Coforce is a digital media marketing agency specializing in the world of motorsports. Working in a variety of racing series in North America, Coforce offers a full range of services, from video production and targeted branding campaigns to event planning and special projects. For more information, visit www.coforce.com or find them at a race event near you.
Gearing up for race number 2 of 2 for the evening. We're glad you're joining us back here on RaceSpotTV for another round of the Real Racers Virtual Club. Round 10 from the virtual Sonoma and Lorenzo. Race number 1 is over. Anders Krohn, now 3 race wins in a row. He was able to do it at Laguna Seca. Maybe a little bit easier to pass here at Sonoma, if you agree with my opinion, but we'll see if he can make it from 9th to 1st. Krohn just with such great speed and with a lot of momentum coming into this second race of the evening.
Yeah, because this track, Sonoma, has the elevation changes, has the braking zone, so it is more prone for the driver to make mistakes and open up those gaps or that opening for you to go inside or outside and have a really good corner exit or straight exit so you can make that overtake and move up one spot. The problem is going to be when he reaches Lasickin, right? How much of a fight will the Russian put up on the Norwegian to try to seal the deal and become a back-to-back winner in the championship and basically put one hand in the title for Andrew Scrone? Can he stop Andrew Scrone? I don't know. We'll have 11 laps to see.
Do you think Lasickin even really has the speed now to contend with Anders Krohn? Because it has been now 3 races where Anders Krohn has been very, very dominant. I think you can add Road America Race 2 as well as one of those where he just got taken out in a wreck. That Anders Krohn has been the fastest driver on the track. I mean, he pulled away by about 3 seconds just right after that restart. Before we could even blink, he was pulled away by 3 seconds. And we're seeing the perfect Anders Krohn that I think we expected at the beginning of the season, especially after his win at Gateway and his win in Interlagos. I think we're finally seeing that come to fruition. So can Nikita Lasickin really do anything, and what does he have to do? How many stops does he got to pull out?
He's got to pull out all the stops because he cannot think of it this way of giving a first place to his main competitor and then head to Watkins Glen with a sparkle of a dust and hope that you get 2 wins at a track that naturally everybody is to be on pace-ish. So it's gonna be basically an aggressive effort, I think, from the driver that goes from Florida to try to seal the deal and get his 5th win in the season.
A very interesting race 2 that is being set up here, especially after the full field invert that we see after race number 1. And that full field invert will put your race winner, Anders Krohn, to the back of the field. And it'll put 9th place finisher in race number 1, Rick Sheldon, up and into the pole position. Nikita Lasichkin will be starting on the outside of the front row. We know how badly he wants another win. He's going to try and do it again here tonight. Matthew Escajeda will start in P3. Kurt Panzergrau will be starting in the 4th spot, with Dave Anderson and Wade Michael 5th and 6th. Rounding out the field, it will be your podium finishers from race 1. Joe Butler in the number 1 machine, Max Butler in the number 3 machine, and Anders Krohn in number 47, starting in P9. So Krohn from the back of the field will have to try and get up to the front. And as we roll off for the pace lap, looks like Nikita Lasichkin not getting going on the grid. There he goes. He is able to start on the formation lap. But Rick Sheldon on the pole. I think he wants to prove something here, Lorenzo. Still winless on this season, but this is his home track. He wants to get it done, whether it's the virtual world or whether it's in the real world. Just racing at your home track is just always special. I think he wants a win here, but he's got a lot of fast drivers to try and beat.
He needs basically a really good start. Somewhat of a messy first lap. Of course, not a yellow flag. The thing that he doesn't need is a yellow flag to put a stamp on his performance and then bring everybody else closer to the race. But Rick Sheldon can pull this one off. I do think that he has the skills. He has a little bit of speed. But the problem is Lasichkin in P2 and how aggressive he's going to get off the gate and how close he's going to mark Rick Sheldon off the start. So he does a lot of time going into the first few sequence of corners. So lap 1 for Lasichkin is basically looking at your friend on your left hand side so closely that you really want to bear hug him of sorts.
Into turn number 7, the field will go on this formation lap. How about row number 2? Matthew Escajeda and Kurt Panzergrau, the 2 former champions. Not really in the championship fight when it comes to this season of action, but still a lot of experience under their belt here at Real Racers Virtual Club, and a lot of speed as well. Escajeda, another driver who ran into issues in race number 1. Kurt Panzergrau has been a solid competitor at the top of the midfield in this season. We'll see what they can do as they'll line up 3rd and 4th on row number 2. The driver who is ready to go racing is the driver starting in P9. It's Anders Krohn. He is staring at 7 total wins, 4 race wins in a row. He already got 1 tonight. He got both 2 weeks ago at Laguna Seca. He looks for another one tonight here at Sonoma. As the pace car pulls into the safety of the virtual pit lane, we are ready to go racing. Rick Sheldon in control of the field. He's going to hit the loud pedal, and we are racing for the 2nd time tonight from the virtual Sonoma. And it's a great start for Rick Sheldon. He'll lead the field up and into turn number 1. Will we see any contact made? We saw it in race number 1. Will we see it in race 2? Diving for a spot goes Dave Anderson. Can't get to the inside of Kurt Panzergrau, but already trying to make a move on the Butlers is Anders Krohn. Joe Butler's going to cover off that spot, but Krohn is able to get by Max Butler for that crucial 8th spot.
Yeah, as we can see, Anders Krohn now diving now on the inside of Max Butler, going for one more spot there. I think that is Dave Anderson right in front of him. So Anders Krohn flying around the track, and Lasichkin caught sleeping on the start. Nearly Escajeda moved through and got P2 out of Lasichkin. That would have been the one thing that Lasichkin didn't want at that start, but managed to hold it very safely and nicely going to the first sequence of corners.
And now Anders Krohn is going to gain one more spot as from the lead, Rick Sheldon is turned around, now going down into P9. Lasickin given the lead. Anders Krohn has marched his way into the top 5, knocking on the door of P4 as he'll go to the inside of Wade Michael. Michael's going to shut that door, and now in 4th place, the photographer is looking to hold on to that spot. 10 years of karting experience. He's trying to use it here in the virtual world, but it'll go wide again, and Anders Krohn picks up 2 for 1 as Kurt Panzergrau now down to 5th, Wade Michael to 4th, and in 1 lap, Anders Krohn is on the podium. Here is what happened on the replay to race leader Rick Sheldon. Oh, he just got too much on the brakes, Lorenzo. Same thing we saw with Escajeda in race 1, and he gets turned around.
Yeah, I thought that for initially there could have been contact between Lasickin and basically Rick Sheldon because it came so close on the timing screen. Who's that locking up tires on the rear? Is that Joe Butler? Or Max Butler locking tires against his brother and nearly causing another family incident.
Side by side as Panzergrau gets very loose down on the inside line of that carousel. He falls to 8th as Dave Anderson now in the top 5. Here comes Joe Butler to the inside at turn 7. Anderson's going to go way wide, way too wide, and Joe Butler picks up that spot. Max Butler says thank you very much, and now the 2 Butler brothers move themselves into 5th and 6th. Dave Anderson down into P7 now. Started up front in the restart of race number 1 and here in race 2, and unfortunately not the speed to contest with the drivers at the front. Diving move to the inside, that's 2nd place, and that's Anders Krohn gaining yet another spot. And take a look at this, Lorenzo, 2 laps gone, and Anders Krohn is already inside a half a second from the race leader Nikita Lasickin. He is going to be in the battle for the lead, especially after a small mistake there from Lasickin as he goes up turn 1.
With the fastest lap as well, so Anders Krohn just saying, "Ooh, is there anybody home at Lasickin household?" Let's see if the Russian answers and how he will answer to that call.
Russian versus Norwegian at the front of this field. And Krohn now in full attack mode. As they go into the carousel, the Butler brothers are going to swap spots for P5. You're on board with the number 47 of Anders Krohn, fighting a 3/10 gap to current race leader Nikita Lasickin. Into turn 7 they go. A little bit too much on the throttle for Anders Krohn. He's going to have to gather it back up and gets a good exit. He'll gain a bit of momentum as they fight now through the S's. Anders Krohn still with a good bit of work to do on this lead gap, but we saw that tiny mistake going up into turn number 1 for Nikita Lasickin, and a little bit of a mistake there, getting into the dirt a little bit there, Lorenzo. Nikita Lasickin is not perfect. He's making a bit of mistakes, and I think a bit too many mistakes to be battling a driver like Anders Krohn breathing down your neck.
I agree, and the one thing you really don't want to be making mistakes is in this track because it takes no prisoners, especially with the sand surrounding every single corner or every single small stretch of straights that you go. So look for the Krohn if any mistakes is done by Lasickin to see the Norwegian trying to capitalize on that.
Not a ton of space between these 2 drivers, still within 0.3 of a second and kind of condensing down to about 0.2 whenever they go into a hard braking zone like they just did. Continuing to fight is the 2 championship rivals. Anders Krohn, presumably with that race number 1 win tonight here at Sonoma, has taken the points lead. We'll see next week once the drop weeks are factored in if it'll be true, but covering off that spot again is Nikita Lasickin. It is these 2 who are battling for the series championship, and could not have chosen 2 better drivers to have a one-on-one championship battle. Both, of course, are real-life drivers when it comes to cars like this, these Indy Pro 2000s in the sim. Of course, Anders Krohn, very, very familiar with these cars, and he's going to make a diving move into the turn 11, the hair hairpin at Sonoma, and he is going to grab the race lead away from the Russian, and the Norwegian goes to the top of the board again on to lap number 5, and Anders Krohn now leads the race here at Sonoma. Lasickin is not done. He'll go back onto the back wing, and look who's also joining the fight. Matthew Escajeda. He's within 3/10 of Nikita Lasickin as well. It's a 3-horse fight at the front, but Anders Krohn looking to make it a 1-horse fight for the lead as he tries to pull away just like he did in race 1.
Yeah, he needs to break away maybe this lap or the next lap. But I like the move, you know, from Anders Krohn. Some elbows were out going into the hairpin. You can even see Lasickin try to close down the gap that he had to Anders Krohn going into the hairpin apex on the entry, but the elbow out of the Norwegian was just too big for Lasickin to try to block. And the number 47 now back into the lead, and Lasickin is struggling a little bit on this mid sector right here.
And you can see now Anders Krohn up to an 0.8 of a second gap now over Nikita Lasickin. Lasickin now losing touch of this lead. We'll go halfway done with race number 2 this time by, and Lasickin might lose out on second place as well to Matthew Escajeda, and that's a big mistake going through the hairpin. He locks it up a little bit on those brakes, gets loose through the apex of the corner, and is going to lose a ton of time, not only to Anders Krohn, but now to Matthew Escajeda behind, and now the season 2 champion in the 7 is breathing down the neck of Nikita Lasickin again.
I like what I'm seeing, but I don't think Lasickin might be able to actually hold for that P2 spot with 5 laps to go once we go for lap number 7, because Escajeda looks, in my opinion, a little bit more of a clean driver. I'm not saying clean as racecraft, is like doing the cleaner lines instead of Lasickin. So I think Escajeda is just waiting for the perfect time to go for the strike and make the move on the number 5. But it's a matter of where and when that is going to be done.
And Lasickin now able to move that gap back to a place where he's comfortable with it, about 4/10 now. But Escajeda using that slipstream to his advantage through the S's, trying to catch up yet again. This is the closest battle on the racetrack. Everybody else sort of spreading their own way out as we go into the middle portion of this race. The Butler brothers still sit 4th and 5th with Dave Anderson in 6th. Rick Sheldon finds himself 7th after an early spin on lap number 1 from the lead. Wade Michael in 8th and Kurt Panzergrau in 9th. Nobody has touched the pit lane. Nobody has gotten into a full incident with damage to their car or contact with another car. So everybody still sits on the track and in the lead lap. But speaking of lead, pulling away now by over 2 seconds and setting another fastest lap of the race, it is Anders Krohn. Perfect hat trick, pole position, fastest lap, and a win in race number 1. I don't think you can really go. Not eligible for a perfect hat trick considering the full field invert, but I do think it is something to say if he does win both races and get fastest lap in both and come from the back to the front in race number 2. Not a hat trick, but still very impressive, especially with only 1 round left in this points championship. And Lasickin now set to pick up the pieces of this second race, Lorenzo.
Yeah, I was going to say, basically he did already a hat trick in this race, going back to back to back. So 3 wins in a row and in 3 races, going for 4 in a row in this championship on these final 3 races. So I wonder what kind of hats are being thrown around the arena or around his household to celebrate the hat trick. But nevertheless, it's going to be, I think, quite of a big message for everybody else in the grid, saying, I am here to stay, and if you want to come at me, you gotta bring everything that you got and bring your claws out. So Watkins Glen is gonna be fireworks when we go there next week.
As they come across the line, it'll be 4 laps remaining. And yet another fastest lap of the race, a 1:24.468 set by Anders Krohn. And the Norwegian at the front of the field continues to dominate. Now Nikita Lasickin able to put a little bit of a gap over Matthew Escajeda as they sit 2nd and 3rd. Now it looks like a little bit of a mistake there from Escajeda, going to extend that gap just a little bit more. But Anders Krohn in the lead, 7 race wins if he can grab this win and once he got into the ballpark of battling for this championship, and he has been in the ballpark ever since he started to rack up a couple more of those wins, and when we went into the middle portion of the campaign, we really started to see Anders Krone's name come up even more, especially as he climbed his way up through the point standings. Now, with 2 back-to-back wins at Laguna Seca, and barring any mistakes, which he hasn't made really at all this season, we'll see 4 wins back-to-back, and we'll see 2 perfect events back-to-back. This is Anders Krone's championship to lose, I think, Lorenzo. Really, at this point, going into the final round, if he ends up needing a drop week to be taken out, and a drop week gets, as one of the 0-point events gets factored back in, I think that's really the only way we see Anders Krone losing this championship, is if he has another 0-point event and doesn't show up next round. If he shows up next round, I think we're seeing at a championship that is going to go the way of Anders Krone.
I do agree. His bloom into the second half, basically the second half of the season, to put it into crazy words right here, has been astounding. You know, we've seen drivers. I've always mentioned that to win championships, you need to be regular. Of course, you need to score wins, but you need the regularity. He proved to have that regularity, having really good results, and not making mistakes when other drivers did. We saw that at Road America. We saw that at Laguna Seca. We saw it like Phoenix as well. So I think even it was a part of one of those at Phoenix that he probably got into contact with Max Jory, one of the butlers. But nevertheless, what a championship Anders Krone has been doing, and Watkins Glen is just going to be proving like to be the crowning of the Norwegian driver championship.
2 laps to go this time by, and that Escajeda-Lasickin fight has gotten a little bit closer, not close enough to warrant any passes made, at least yet, by Matthew Escajeda, as we get a great speed shot of Anders Krone there, and yet another fastest lap of the race, a 1:24.259. As the fuel burns off, speed's picking up, and it looks like Matthew Escajeda might be within earshot of a second place spot and a pass for that second spot. We'll see if he ends up having that, but as Anders Krone continues to lead the way, Lorenzo, just going in to the final round, and of course we'll put a bookend to this race at Sonoma when we go through the post-race show and we get our interviews out of the way, but this is going to be an interesting fight at Watkins Glen, because Lasickin is still going to have a chance, but he's going to need Anders Krone to slip up, which I can't think at least in recent memory of this campaign, but really just in the entire season, we have not seen a mistake from the Norwegian at all.
No, we have not. We have seen him being clean and effective every single race. I think the major problem is not just one race that the Norwegian has to make a blunder. He has to make a blunder in both races. And it's not a small blunder. It has to be the biggest blunder in the human history. So it's a long shot now for Lasickin. I think even if he's regular with results, it's going to be complicated for him to catch it back the top spot.
White flag in the air. One final lap for Anders Krone. One final lap for this battle between Lasickin and Escajeda. They go up and into turn number 1. Escajeda gonna try and get aggressive. He had no room down on the inside, but you can see on the exit of turn 1, both of those drivers getting a little bit loose, losing a bit of the grip of the back end. They both save it. They remain on the track, but Escajeda now losing a bit of time to Lasickin. Let's see what they can do as they go through the carousel now. They'll go up the hill, they'll go right back down, diving into the carousel they go. Lasickin on the inside line, Escajeda on the outside line, and now they're going to kind of swap lanes as they go off the exit of that corner. Escajeda might have one more opportunity, a bit of slipstream. It's down to 2/10 into turn 7. Escajeda tries to look to the inside, but even with late braking, just not having enough space on that inside to contend with Nikita Lasickin. But you can see coming through the frame now is Anders Krone. He's going to work his way into the final 2 corners here at the virtual Sonoma Raceway, and he is going to come through as a 7-time racer of the Real Racers Virtual Club Season 3. It's 4 in a row, 2 perfect events for Anders Krohn, and he can take a bow at the top step of the podium in wine country. And at the end, it will be Lastichkin ending up in 2nd, Escajeda ending up in 3rd, and the Butler brothers will come home 4th and 5th. Not exactly the battle we wanted, Lorenzo, but what a dominating performance from Anders Krohn. It is amazing just to watch what he is doing now in the last half of this season.
Yeah, I think he was nowhere to be seen in this race. I think he was in a class of his own, just separated once he moved past into Nikita Lastichkin. You see now the race results for race number 2. See the separation, 6 seconds coming from last place, moving into P4 on the end of lap 1 and P2 at the end of lap 2, and then after that just opening up a huge gap on his competition. So man, what a dominating effort from Anders Krohn. And Escajeda, I think with this race might have sealed the deal for top 3.
So Anders Krohn remains the top driver here in the Real Racers Virtual Club as he grabs the win. Nikita Lastichkin will come home in 2nd place with Matthew Escajeda in 3rd, Joe Butler 4th, Max Butler 4th, excuse me. Joe Butler will come home in 5th with Dave Anderson, Rick Sheldon, Wade Michael, and Kurt Panzergrau, rounding out the 9 drivers who took the green flag in race number 1 and 2 tonight. And we are ready to dive into the post-race show and speak with the dominant driver, at least over the last 2 rounds are concerned, and it's Anders Krohn. And Anders, you needed this performance to get on top of Nikita Lastichkin and battle for that championship. And I think this was a statement race for you that you are the championship favorite going into Watkins Glen in 1 week's time.
Well, yeah, appreciate that. It was everything definitely came together tonight, even more so than it did at Laguna Seca. So that was good. The unfortunate news is I won't be doing the season finale next week, so I have no idea what the points look like. We'll see if it's good enough. But either way, great night.
Well, that is going to throw a wrench into the championship standings, but talk about this season as a whole for you then, because 7 wins, most of anybody else. Nikita Lastichkin is the only one that comes even remotely close at 4 wins on the season. It's got to be rewarding for you, especially against a group of drivers and against Nikita Lastichkin, another real-world racing driver, to really have this success, especially in the sim racing world.
Yeah, for sure, and we've also had so many other great guest drivers come in and out of the series throughout the years. So hopefully, with the new season, we'll be able to get everyone to stick around for the full year. But it's been a lot of fun, and certainly feels like things. Maybe I've had some luck over the last few weekends or whatever, but certainly feels like the tide's been turning in my favor a little bit. So we'll see what happens next week, and we'll see what happens in the championship.
Well, even if we don't see you in the series finale at Watkins Glen, it was an amazing season for you, Anders. Congratulations on both of your race wins tonight, and thank you for joining us here in the RaceSpotTV booth. Go have a good one.
All right, thanks so much. You too.
Moving over to 2nd place tonight, Nikita Lastichkin. He's with Lorenzo Bonder.
So Nikita, first race didn't go the way you probably wanted. I know you tried your best, but race 2, battle to the end with Matthew Escajeda. What you thought about this race?
Obviously race 1 was just unfortunate, but that stuff happens in racing. Race 2 was good. I was hoping to give Anders more of a run for the win, but he was just outright faster. He was really quick this weekend or this meeting. But yeah, with the race towards the end was good. We ended up with 2nd, so yeah, I'll take that.
Right on. And with the absence of Anders Krohn next week, what do you have to do? What does Nikita need to do to get the championship? If there is any chance for the championship, we haven't seen the points pending and drops weeks pending, but what do you think you have to do at Watkins Glen?
I did not know that Anders was going to be absent, but yeah, I guess just win both the races and just be smart with the draft at the Glen.
Right on, Nikita. And again, man, enjoy the break, and we'll see you next week. And congrats on P2 at race 2, man.
Thank you very much, guys.
11.
And continuing with the post-race show, and clearly in deep conversation when we pulled him here into the broadcast booth, is Matthew Escajeda. And Matthew, I don't think race number 1 really went as planned for you. Talk about that mistake that you made going into turn number 7 that ultimately led to your not so stellar finish in the first race.
Man, that was crazy. I kind of got distracted by the other 2 drivers, just kind of an amateur move. And then I hit the grass on the outside wall, which I've never done in my whole sim racing life. So that was just a weird freak incident, I guess. And I feel bad for Rick.
Yeah, and of course in race number 2, went a lot better for you. You were able to contend and grab that podium, but do you think with a little bit more time you might have been able to catch up to Lasickin in second place and grab that second place finish away from him?
I feel like I could have if I maybe tried an aggressive dive bomb in 11 or something, but he's a pretty good racer. He knows when he needs to shut the door. So I didn't know if I wanted to risk trying to do that in 11. That was probably the only place I was going to get him. But it was a pretty even race the whole time. I was just waiting for him to slip up, but he never did.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in Watkins Glen for the series finale in 1 week's time. Matthew, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth, and congratulations on your podium finish.
All right, thank you very much.
And finishing out our post-race show, Max Butler, 4th place finish for him in race number 2. He's standing by with Lorenzo.
So, Max, you tried your best to try to get within the podium, but I think if we have to think, that was a solid result so far because it kind of gives you a little bit of a ledge to grab and get closer to Matthew Escajeda moving into the final race.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see the points after this one. I got kind of lucky that Matt had some technical difficulties at the beginning of the first one, so that gave me and that second place actually gave me a lot of points. So I think it's actually tightening up for the last one. I believe we have one more race at Road Atlanta, which is one of my favorite tracks, so I'm really excited for that.
Criteria right there is Watkins Glen. We go to the boot. So, why do we? Yeah, bring you down a little bit, Max. But going back to Watkins Glen, where we started, what do you think is the greatest risk going into a track that is going to be a little bit of a different layout from what you ran at the beginning of the season?
I like this layout a lot. I've had ups and downs on it. We've raced this a few times, and I've made my mistakes. I've had my redemptions, so it's all up in the air. I think at this point, Nikita and Anders are battling out for first in the championship. So I don't know. As long as I finish in front of Matthew Escajeda, I think I'll be a happy boy going to sleep at night.
All right on, man. And enjoy your week break, and we'll see you next week for the final race of the season.
Thank you guys so much.
Great to hear from the top 4 finishers of race number 2 here at the virtual Sonoma Raceway. And that concludes round number 10. But Lorenzo, 1 round remains. Virtual Watkins Glen. We started the season there. We are going to end the season there. And just this championship battle turning the tide of Anders Krone. Of course, we might not see him in the series finale, so that's going to give Nikita Lasickin a perfect opportunity to pounce back up to the top of the championship. But just what a season we've had, and we're capping it off at where we started it, and we're going to take that bus stop out of the equation, which is going to throw another curveball at these drivers.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race to watch. I was not ready for the Anders Krone, maybe absent bombshell at the final race of the season to cap everything off, but it's going to be an interesting one, going NASCAR class, of sorts, around the track. So draft is going to matter, precision is going to matter, and whoever comes out on top, congratulations. It's going to be an exciting race to watch in 1 week.
We hope that you'll join us in 1 week's time. It is the 11th and final round of the Real Racers Virtual Club Season 3. Same time, same place, right here on RaceSpotTV. For Tyler Maxson down in the virtual production trailer, and for my colleague in the booth, Lorenzo Bonder, Arjuna Kankipati also helping us out in the post-race show as well. My name is Joshua Lee, and we thank you for tuning in to round number 10 from Virtual Sonoma of the Real Racers Virtual Club. Round 11 is in 1 week's time, and we'll see you for the championship finale.